The sound of metal echoed through the dark chamber. Chains rattled. A faint blue light blinked in the corner, scanning, pulsing, watching. The air smelled strange, sharp, cold, and alive, like electricity mixed with fear. Captain Raina Cole opened her eyes slowly. Her head throbbed. Her arms were pulled tight above her, locked in glowing cuffs that hummed with alien energy. She tried to move, but the restraint sent a jolt through her body. She gasped. She wasn't on her ship anymore. She wasn't even on Earth. Her blurry vision cleared and she saw them, tall, armored figures with black skin like polished stone and eyes that glowed silver. Alien soldiers, the Xylar Dominion. Enemies of Earth, a voice spoke, deep, calm, and dangerous. Human, you are awake. Raina turned her head toward the sound. A tall figure stepped forward, different from the others. His armor was dark red, marked with strange glowing lines. His face was strong, almost human in shape, but sharper, with faint scars running across his jaw. His eyes were cold silver, like mirrors. He was the general. She could tell from the way the others moved when he entered. General Kale. He stopped in front of her, studying her face. No emotion, no anger. Only curiosity. Raina tried to sound brave. If you're going to kill me, do it fast. Kale tilted his head slightly. Kill you? No, Captain Cole, you are more interesting alive. His voice carried a strange rhythm, smooth, controlled, but heavy with power. He pressed a device on his wrist. A soft blue hologram appeared, showing the destroyed remains of Raina's ship. Flames and wreckage floated in space. Her heart sank. You fought well, Kale said. Your crew resisted even when surrounded. Humans are stubborn. Raina met his gaze. We call it courage. A faint sound escaped Kale, almost like a laugh, but not quite. He walked closer, his boots echoing on the metal floor. When he was only a step away, he leaned down slightly, his cold eyes locked on hers. Tell me, he said quietly. Why are you blushing, human? Raina's breath caught. She wasn't. Or maybe she was, and the room was freezing, her heart was racing, and his stare felt like it could see straight through her. She looked away. You're imagining things. Kale replied. Perhaps. He circled her slowly, his voice low. Your people came here with weapons. They tried to take what was not theirs. Now you are alone. Tell me what you were searching for. Raina said nothing. Kyle stopped behind her, silent for a long moment. Then he spoke softer this time. Your silence is brave, foolish, but brave. He moved back in front of her. Maybe I should see what fear looks like in a human's eyes. He lifted a small crystal from his belt. It shimmered in blue light, sending out a strange hum. Raina clenched her fists. She didn't know what it was, but she knew pain when she saw it. Kale paused. For a moment, something human flickered across his face. He lowered the device. No, not yet. He turned to one of his soldiers. Feed her. Treat her wounds. She is a soldier, not an animal. The soldier hesitated. But General... Kale's eyes flashed silver. Now. Raina watched him walk away, the long shadow of his armor stretching across the floor. For the first time since her capture, she felt something she didn't expect. Confusion. This alien general, this enemy, had spared her. But why? As the guards released her from the chains and led her to a small locked room, her mind spun with questions. She touched the mark left by the glowing cuffs and whispered to herself, What do you want from me, Kyle? Outside the cell, the alien general stood alone in the corridor, staring at the hologram of her face. The corners of his mouth moved slightly, not a smile, but something close. He whispered, blushing. Curious creature. The lights dimmed, the ship hummed, and far away in the cold silence of space, two worlds had just begun to collide. Not with weapons, but with something far more dangerous, something neither of them understood. The alien warship drifted silently through deep space. Its metal hull glowed faintly under the light of two distant stars. Inside, everything felt alive. The walls pulsed with soft blue veins of energy, and the air carried a quiet hum, like a heartbeat made of machines. In the observation chamber, General Kale stood still, hands behind his back watching the stars. His mind should have been on war reports, fleet positions, and enemy transmissions, but it wasn't. It kept returning to the same image, the human prisoner, Captain Raina Cole, the stubborn one who refused to speak, the one who met his gaze without fear. He didn't understand why he kept thinking about her. Humans were strange creatures, emotional, fragile, unpredictable. Yet when she looked at him, he felt something. Something he hadn't felt in years of war. Kale's second-in-command, Commander Voran, entered quietly. "General, the human refuses to answer any more questions." Kyle didn't turn. "She answered none in the first place." "Then allow me to use the neural probe. We can extract—" "No," Kyle interrupted, his voice calm but firm. "She is not to be harmed." Voran frowned. "With respect, General, this human is dangerous. Her mind may hold valuable intelligence." Kale turned slowly, his silver eyes glowing faintly. "Do you question my order?" The commander stepped back. "No, General." When Voran left, Kale's gaze returned to the stars. "Dangerous," he repeated softly. "Yes, but not in the way you think." Down in the holding section, Reyna sat alone on a cold bench. A single light shone above her, flickering every few seconds. Her wrists still ached from the energy cuffs. She had tried counting the minutes, but time here didn't feel real. The door opened with a soft hiss. She looked up sharply, ready to fight if needed. It was him again. General Kale. He walked in slowly, no guards this time, no weapons drawn. His armor reflected the dim light as he stopped in front of her. "I expected more resistance," he said quietly. Reyna frowned. "What do you want from me now?" Kale tilted his head. "Information. But perhaps something else too." He tapped a command on his wrist device. The cuffs on her arms unlocked with a soft click. Reyna rubbed her wrists, surprised. "Why are you doing this?" Kale watched her carefully. "Because fear breaks nothing but bones. I want to see what truth does." Reyna stood up slowly, her voice cold. "You think you can charm me into talking?" Kyle's lips curved in almost a smile. "Charm, an interesting human word. Does it work on your kind?" She crossed her arms. "Not on me." He studied her face for a long moment, then asked, "Tell me, why do humans fight so hard? You lose thousands, yet you never surrender. Is it pride?" Reyna looked him straight in the eye. "It's because we have something worth dying for, our home, our people." Kyle nodded slowly. "Strange creatures. You burn your worlds and call it love." She stepped closer, defiant. "You wouldn't understand." His silver eyes flickered, reflecting her face. "Perhaps not, but I want to." There was silence. Only the sound of the ship's pulse filled the air. Then Kale said softly, "You blush when you're angry." Reyna blinked. "What?" "The color in your face changes. It is fascinating." "Maybe stop staring at me then." "Maybe," he said, amused. For a brief moment, something changed. The air felt lighter, almost human, but it vanished as quickly as it came when the alarm lights turned red. Kale touched his wristcom. "Report." A voice came through. "Unidentified ships approaching. Human signature detected." Reyna's heart jumped. Could it be her fleet? A rescue? Kale turned to her. "Your people are reckless. They are flying straight into a blockade. They will die." She stepped forward. "You have to warn them." He met her eyes. "They are the enemy. They're my crew." He hesitated, a dangerous pause that lasted forever. Then he spoke softly, almost to himself. "Strange. You speak of loyalty with such pain. No machine can understand that." He walked to the door but stopped halfway. Without looking back, he said, "If you lie to me again, I will know. But if you speak truth, maybe I will listen." And before leaving, he added quietly, "Tell me again, Captain, why are you blushing?" The door closed, leaving Reyna staring at the empty room, her heart pounding in confusion. She didn't know if he was her captor or her protector. But one thing was certain, General Kyle was no ordinary alien. And somewhere in his metallic heart, curiosity had begun to burn hotter than war itself. The ship shook violently. Alarms screamed. The metal floor vibrated beneath Reyna's feet as she stumbled, catching the wall for balance. Outside her small window, flashes of blue light streaked across the void, explosions blooming like deadly stars. Human ships. Her people had found her, but it wasn't rescue. It was chaos. The alien fleet answered fire with fire. Energy blasts cut through the black sky like lightning, tearing apart everything in their path. Reyna's heart raced. She had dreamed of this moment, being saved. But now, watching both sides destroy each other, something twisted inside her chest. The door hissed open. General Kale stepped in, his armor glowing with faint red symbols. Smoke and dust clung to him. He looked different. Not calm, but furious, you called them, didn't you? He demanded. Reyna's eyes widened. No, I didn't. You humans never stop bringing war wherever you go. She stepped closer, shouting back. And you aliens never stop enslaving everything you find. For a moment, silence. Just heavy breathing. Then the ship shook again, throwing them both off balance. Cale grabbed her arm to steady her. Their faces came close. Too close. His silver eyes glowed faintly, reflecting her fear. And something else. Don't make me regret sparing you, he said quietly. I didn't ask you to, she shot back. But she didn't pull away. Outside, another explosion rocked the hull. A voice echoed through Cale's communicator. General. Hull breach in Sector 9. We're losing control. Kyle cursed in his alien tongue. We're being boarded. Your people are coming, Reyna froze. Then help me reach them. He glared at her. They'll kill me on sight. Then stay behind. And let them take you? His voice dropped low. No. You'd die before you reached your ship. Their eyes locked. Two enemies forced to trust each other. Then what's your plan, General? She asked. He turned sharply. Follow me. They ran through flickering corridors filled with smoke and sparks. The ship groaned like a dying beast. Sirens wailed. Alien soldiers rushed past them, shouting in a language Reyna didn't understand. Some stopped when they saw her, confused and angry. Cale barked an order, his voice sharp and commanding. The soldiers hesitated, then obeyed. Reyna noticed something strange. None dared to question him, even though he was helping a human. They reached the hangar bay. Half the docking area was gone, ripped open by explosions. Fire floated in the vacuum like ghosts dancing in the dark. Cale moved to a control panel, typing fast. What are you doing? She yelled. Releasing a scout pod. It's small enough to avoid detection. He looked up at her. It can carry one. Reyna stared at him. You mean... Me? He nodded. You'll escape through the debris field. And you? I'll hold them back, she shook her head. You'll be killed. Kyle gave a small, strange smile. A warrior dies when he must, but you still have a home to return to. Her throat tightened. She wanted to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. Another explosion shook the hangar. Metal tore like paper. Kel grabbed her shoulders. Go, human. But before she could move, the ceiling collapsed. A massive beam crashing down between them. Sparks flew. Smoke filled the air. Kyle, she screamed. He was on the other side, half his armor crushed, but still standing. He shouted through the fire, get to the pod. Now she didn't listen. Instead, she crawled through the smoke toward him. The heat burned her skin. Her lungs ached. She reached him and helped lift the metal just enough for him to crawl free. Kyle stared at her, unstunned. You risked your life for me? She coughed, choking on the smoke. Guess we're both stubborn. He touched his wrist pad, sealing the hangar doors. The fires dimmed as emergency systems kicked in. He looked at her. Truly looked at her. You had a chance to escape, he said softly. So did you, she replied. For the first time, Cale laughed, low, rough, but real. Humans, he muttered, shaking his head. Impossible creatures. Then, as silence settled between them, he leaned close and whispered the same words that had haunted her since the first day. Why are you blushing, human? Reyna didn't answer. She couldn't. Her heart was pounding too fast. Outside the viewport, the wreckage of two fleets drifted together, human and alien, locked in a deadly embrace. Inside, something different had begun. A fragile, forbidden alliance that neither of them could explain, but neither could deny. The ship was dying, every corridor glowed red. Fire burned in broken vents, smoke filled the air, and the deep hum of the Xylar warship turned into a painful groan, like the metal itself was crying. General Cale and Captain Reyna Cole ran through the chaos. Behind them, alarms screamed and soldiers shouted in alien tongues. The war outside had reached the heart of the ship. Faster, Cale commanded, pulling her by the arm as the floor shook beneath their feet. Reyna's lungs burned, but she didn't stop. They turned a corner and froze. 3 alien soldiers stood in the hall, weapons raised. Their silver eyes widened at the sight of her. A human standing beside their general. General Cale, one of them shouted. You're protecting the prisoner. Cale's jaw tightened. Stand down. She's the enemy. Another soldier shouted. Reyna saw the moment everything went wrong. One of them raised his weapon. Cale reacted faster. His arm blade flashed, cutting through the air with deadly precision. The blast hit the wall, exploding in a shower of sparks. When it was over, the soldiers were down. Smoke filled the corridor again. Reyna looked at him in shock. You just fought your own men." Cale didn't look at her. "They would have killed you. Why protect me?" He turned to face her, eyes glowing faintly silver through the smoke. "I don't know yet." They reached a sealed blast door. Cale pressed his hand on the scanner, but nothing happened. The system was offline. He cursed under his breath. "Move back," he ordered. Before Reyna could argue, Cale lifted his plasma blade and slashed through the locking mechanism. The metal melted, dripping like liquid fire. The door split open with a hiss, revealing a dark hangar beyond. Half the ships were destroyed. The rest were flickering with dying power. Cale scanned the room quickly. "There!" He pointed to a small vessel wedged between two wrecks, a stealth craft half functional but still glowing faintly. Reyna followed him inside. The cockpit smelled of smoke and burning wires. She dropped into the co-pilot's seat. "Can this thing even fly?" Cale ran his claws across the controls, eyes narrowing. "If it doesn't, we die trying." The engines coughed, then roared weakly to life. The hangar doors began to open, and suddenly voices echoed behind them. "Cale of Xylar, you betrayed the Dominion." Dozens of armed soldiers appeared, their weapons aimed at the small craft. Kyle growled. "Hold on." He slammed the throttle forward. The stealth ship shot out of the hangar just as a barrage of energy bolts hit behind them. The explosion lit up the stars. For a moment, everything was bright, and then only silence. The ship spun through debris, escaping into the endless dark. Kyle steadied the controls with both hands. Sparks danced around them, panels flickering. Reyna gripped her seat, heart racing. "We made it?" Cale didn't answer right away. His gaze stayed on the stars ahead. For now. They flew in silence for a while. The battle behind them faded, just glowing dust against the black sky. Reyna looked at him, the warrior who had just thrown away his honor, his rank, his people. For her. "You could have left me," she said softly. Cale's voice was low. "I could have. But I didn't. Why?" He finally turned to face her. His eyes glowed softer now, not cold, not cruel. "Because I think your courage is contagious." Reyna looked down, hiding the small smile forming on her lips. "You really are strange, General." He tilted his head slightly. "And you, human, are impossible." For a brief moment they both laughed, the first real laughter since the war began. It sounded strange, fragile, and alive inside the small ship. But peace never lasts long in space. A red light blinked on the console. Cale's expression darkened. "They're tracking us." "My own fleet." Reyna's eyes widened. "Then we need to hide." He nodded. "There's a moon ahead, frozen, uninhabited. We'll lose them in its shadow." The ship dived into the mist of an icy world. Frost formed on the windows as they descended into darkness. The engines whined, then died. Silence returned. Reyna leaned back in her seat, shivering. "We're safe, right?" Kyle stared at the white landscape stretching below them. "For now. But safety is an illusion, Captain." He looked at her, his voice softer than before. "You blush every time you think you're safe." "Humans are strange." She smiled faintly, her breath fogging in the cold air. "And you notice every time." Outside, snow fell like ashes across the frozen valley. Two fugitives, one human, one alien, sat together in a dying ship surrounded by silence. They had escaped the war, but not their feelings. And somewhere, deep in the frozen moon's stillness, something new began to thaw. Not just ice, but hearts. The storm outside never stopped. Frozen wind screamed against the metal hull, shaking the small ship like a trapped animal. Ice crawled across the windows, covering the stars one by one until only darkness remained. Inside, the air was cold and silent. The only sound was the soft hum of damaged engines trying to stay alive, like a dying heartbeat. Captain Reyna Cole sat near the heater, her arms wrapped around herself. Her breath came out in small white clouds. Across the narrow cabin, General Kyle worked quietly, repairing a shattered control panel with glowing tools. They hadn't spoken much since landing on the frozen moon. Words were heavy here, heavier than the silence that surrounded them. Finally, Reyna whispered, "You should rest." Cale didn't look up. Machines do not rest. She gave a small smile. You're not a machine. He paused, then met her eyes. No, I suppose I'm not. He returned to work, the blue light from his tools casting faint shadows on his face. The scars across his jaw caught the glow, making him look less like a soldier and more like something human. Raina watched him for a moment. He had saved her life, twice now. She didn't understand why. Maybe he didn't either. But something inside her felt strange when she looked at him. Something warm even in this frozen place. A sudden noise echoed outside, metal shifting in the storm. Raina jumped to her feet. What was that? Cale straightened, listening. His hearing was sharper than hers. He moved toward the door, scanning his wrist display. Something's moving out there. Raina grabbed her blaster from the wall. Enemy? Cale shook his head slowly. Not human. Not Xylar. He opened the hatch slightly. Cold air burst inside, slicing through the heat. Snow swirled in thick and wild. For a second, through the storm, they saw something glowing. Blue lights crawling across the ice like veins. Raina whispered, "What is that?" Cale's eyes narrowed. The planet is alive. The light pulsed once, then faded into the distance. Silence returned. Cale sealed the hatch and turned back to her. It will not harm us, if we do not disturb it. Raina lowered her blaster, her hands still shaking. Great, a living planet. Just what we needed. He gave a faint smile. It seems the universe enjoys irony. They sat again near the heater. Minutes passed. Long, quiet, almost peaceful. Cale studied her from across the room. You fear many things, he said softly. She frowned. Everyone does. But you hide it better than most. Raina looked into the flames. Fear keeps me alive, perhaps. But it also keeps you alone. She turned to him, surprised. You sound like someone who knows. His voice grew distant. I do. I was raised to be a weapon. No family, no softness. Only war. He looked down at his armored hands, strong, scarred, tired. When I first saw you, he continued quietly, I thought you were weak, small. But you looked at me without fear. No one had ever done that. Raina's heart thudded softly in her chest. Maybe I was just stupid. Kyle smiled faintly. Or brave. The heater flickered, casting a soft orange light over them. The silence grew warmer now, not empty, but full of unspoken things. Raina whispered, You keep watching me. Why? Kyle leaned back slowly. Because humans change color when they feel something. Your face tells your secrets before your mouth does. She laughed lightly. You mean blushing? Yes, he said, tilting his head. That it is. Beautiful. The words hung in the air, delicate and heavy at the same time. Raina looked down, her cheeks warming despite the cold. She whispered, Why are you saying that? Cale's silver eyes softened. Because it is true. Outside, the wind howled, but inside the small cabin, something gentle bloomed. For the first time since the war began, Raina didn't feel like a prisoner or a soldier. She felt human, painfully, beautifully human. Kyle turned away first, breaking the moment. We'll need to leave soon. My people will search this moon. Raina nodded slowly. And if they find us? He looked at her, his voice calm, steady, certain. Then they'll have to go through me. She smiled faintly, heart racing. You'd fight your own army for me? Cale's answer was simple. I already did. The storm outside began to fade, and the stars reappeared through the ice-covered glass. Inside that quiet ship, two enemies sat side by side, bound by fate, by war, and by something neither of them could name. And when Cale looked at her again, his voice dropped to a whisper that melted through the cold. Why are you blushing, human? Raina turned away, smiling softly to herself. The frozen moon stayed silent, but if anyone had listened closely, they might have heard it. Two hearts beating in the void. The frozen moon was quiet again. Too quiet. For 3 nights, Raina Cole and General Cale had stayed hidden in the broken ship. The storm outside had faded, leaving the world wrapped in a silver blanket of snow. The silence almost felt peaceful, but Kyle didn't trust peace. Not anymore. He stood near the window, his eyes scanning the horizon. The light from a distant sun glimmered faintly across his armor. Every muscle in his body was tense. They've found us, he said at last. Raina looked up sharply from where she sat near the heater. How can you tell? Cale's gaze didn't move from the sky. Because silence never lasts. And the stars are moving. She joined him at the window. At first she saw nothing, only the endless white of snow and ice. But then tiny shapes appeared above the horizon, sleek black ships cutting through the atmosphere. Her breath caught. Human ships? Kale's voice turned hard. No, Xylar, her heart sank. Your people, he nodded slowly. They are coming for me, she frowned. No, for us. The ship trembled as Kale activated the last bit of power left in the console. We can't fight them, he said. We run. Run where? She asked. We're on a dead planet. He didn't answer. He was already moving, grabbing the emergency kit and the plasma rifle. His armor plates shifted and locked into battle mode. The old soldier was back, calm, precise, unstoppable. Reyna followed him out into the snow, her boots sinking deep into the frozen ground. The cold burned her lungs. The wind bit her skin. Above them, the sky filled with fire, alien ships descending like falling stars. Kyle turned toward her. If they catch us, they'll kill you first. She glared at him. Then we don't let them catch us. They ran through the icy valley, the sound of engines echoing behind them. Energy blasts struck the ground, sending snow and fire into the air. Kale grabbed Reyna and pulled her behind a ridge. They won't stop, she said, panting. You're their general, they'll want you alive. He looked at her, eyes glowing faintly. Not anymore, the sky roared. One of the Xylar dropships landed nearby, its engines melting the snow to steam. Soldiers poured out, weapons ready. Kale aimed his rifle, firing quick bursts of blue light. The shots hit 2 soldiers before the rest scattered for cover. Go, he shouted. Find the signal beacon. Reyna hesitated. What beacon? There's a human distress satellite near the ridge. I saw it when we landed. It's old, but maybe... Before he could finish, a beam of red light struck the ground beside him, knocking him back. The rifle flew from his hands. Kale! Reyna screamed. He pushed himself up, his armor scorched and smoking. I'm fine, he grunted. To go. She ran, heart pounding, snow whipping into her face. The wind howled around her. She could hear Kale fighting behind her. The sound of alien blades clashing, the echo of gunfire, and then... Silence. Reyna froze. No more shots. No more Kyle. She turned, terror rising in her throat, and saw him surrounded. Dozens of Xylar soldiers stood around the fallen general. Their weapons were trained on him. A tall figure stepped forward. Commander Voran, the same alien who had once served under Kale. General Kale, Voran said coldly, you have betrayed your Dominion. Kale's voice was rough but steady. The Dominion betrayed itself. You protected a human. I protected my honor. Voran's metallic jaw tightened. Then die with it. Reyna screamed and fired her blaster. The shot hit Voran's armor, throwing him off balance. The soldiers turned their weapons toward her. Kyle moved instantly, throwing himself between her and the attack. Energy bolts struck his armor, burning through the plates. He fell to one knee, smoke rising from his chest. Kale, she cried, rushing to him. She grabbed his shoulders, shaking him. His silver eyes flickered, dimming. He looked up at her, and despite the pain, he smiled faintly. You never listen, human. Tears stung her eyes. You saved me again, why? His hand touched her cheek, leaving a smear of blood and ash. Because you made me remember I was alive. Then he whispered, voice fading. Why? Are you blushing? Before Reyna could speak, she was pulled back roughly. The soldiers grabbed her arms, forcing her to her knees. Voran aimed his weapon at Kale. Finish it, he ordered. Reyna screamed, No! A blast of light filled the air, and when it faded, Kale lay still. The snow around him turned red. Reyna's scream echoed through the frozen valley. Hours later, the Xylar soldiers dragged her aboard their ship. She sat silent, her eyes empty, her wrists bound again. Outside, the stars drifted by, cold, distant, uncaring. But somewhere deep inside her heart, a spark still burned. The war wasn't over. And neither was Kale's story. The stars looked empty that night. No light, no warmth, only silence stretching across the cold sea of space. Inside the Xylar flagship, Captain Reyna Cole sat in a steel cell, her wrists chained once again. The walls glowed faintly, humming with alien energy. She hadn't slept since they took her. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Kale. His eyes, his voice, the way he smiled in his final moment. His last words echoed inside her mind. "Why are you blushing, human?" She pressed her forehead against the wall, whispering, "Because you made me feel alive." The door hissed open. Commander Voran entered, his black armor gleaming under the cold light. "Your war is over, human," he said flatly. "You'll be sent back to Earth as an example. Your people will learn not to challenge the Dominion again." Reyna didn't look at him. "You think you've won?" Voran tilted his head. "We destroyed your fleet. We killed your general. What else is there to win?" Her eyes lifted slowly, and for the first time there was a small, knowing smile on her lips.
"You didn't kill him," she whispered. Voran frowned.
"Don't play games." But before he could say more, the ship's lights flickered. Once, twice, then the alarm screamed. Red warning lights flashed through the hallways. The floor trembled under their feet. A voice shouted through the speakers. "Unknown power surge in the engine core. Shields failing." Voran turned sharply. "What is happening?" Reyna stood, eyes burning with a strange calm. "He's coming back." Outside, in the black ocean of stars, a shadow moved. Half metal, half fire. A ship that shouldn't have been flying. Powered by energy no human or Xylar had ever seen. At its heart stood General Kale, alive. His armor was cracked and scorched, glowing faintly from within. The plasma running through his veins flickered with unstable light, keeping him alive just long enough for one final act. He spoke into the ship's comm. "Reyna, hold on." The Xylar flagship shuddered as Kale's ship rammed into its side, tearing through the hull. Alarms blared. Energy bolts fired wildly through the smoke. Voran shouted orders. But it was too late. Kyle burst through the wreckage like a burning star, his blade blazing with blue fire. Reyna's heart stopped when she saw him. He looked broken, dying. But unstoppable. Voran raised his weapon. "You should have stayed dead." Kale's voice was deep, echoing like thunder. "Death obeys me, not you." They clashed. Metal against metal, light against shadow. Sparks lit the dark corridor. Kale moved like a storm, his strikes fueled by pain, love, and fury. Reyna struggled against her chains. She pulled with everything she had until the cuffs snapped loose. She ran toward them, shouting, "Kale!" The commander swung his blade toward her, but Kale stepped in front of it, taking the hit to his shoulder. He roared, slamming his weapon through Voran's chest. The alien fell, his armor cracking apart. Silence returned. Smoke drifted through the air. Kale turned to her. His armor was failing, the light inside him fading fast. "You shouldn't have come back," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. He gave a faint smile. "You knew I would." She held his arm, trembling. "You're hurt." "I've been hurt since I met you," he said softly, and for the first time his voice was gentle. He reached up, his hand brushing against her cheek, leaving faint traces of glowing blue light. "Your people, they will need hope. Tell them the Xylar can change." Reyna shook her head, voice breaking. "Don't talk like this. You're going to make it." Kyle smiled weakly. Humans always believe in miracles. The ship around them began to collapse, sparks raining down. Kale's ship's reactor was overloading. The explosion was seconds away. Reyna grabbed his hand tightly. "Come with me. There's still time." He shook his head slowly. "No, there isn't." Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "Now I understand why you blush." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "Because I feel," she said, choking back a sob. "Because you made me feel everything." Kyle smiled, a small, peaceful smile that held the weight of two worlds. "Then I did something right." He leaned closer, his forehead touching hers. The blue light in his eyes dimmed, flickering like the last spark of a dying star. "Goodbye, human." And before she could answer, the light consumed everything. Hours later, Reyna woke aboard a rescue ship. The Xylar flagship was gone, destroyed in a brilliant blue explosion. She stood at the window, staring into the empty space where Kale's ship had been. In her hand, she held a small metal shard, a fragment of his armor still warm to the touch. A young soldier walked up beside her. "Captain, what happened out there?" Reyna smiled faintly, eyes still on the stars. "An alien saved humanity," she said softly. "And he taught me how to feel again." The soldier looked confused. "Why are you smiling?" Reyna looked down at the glowing shard in her hand and whispered, Because somewhere in this cold universe, I think he's still watching. As the ship drifted through the stars, the cold emptiness didn't feel so empty anymore. The war was over. But the memory of General Kyle, the alien who asked a human why she blushed, would live forever, written across the galaxies, in light and legend.